You ever notice how a man can be deeply connected to you one moment, and then suddenly he becomes distant, quieter, colder, almost like someone switched off a light inside him? It leaves you confused, questioning yourself, replaying every conversation to find out what went wrong. But here's the truth. Most women blame themselves when in reality his distance has nothing to do with your worth. Today, I'm going to explain the real psychological reasons men pull away, even when they genuinely care. You know, relationships are funny in ways we don't always notice. We think we understand someone until suddenly they behave in ways that completely confuse us. And nothing confuses a woman more than this moment, when a man who once felt close, connected, warm, attentive, suddenly feels distant. It's like the emotional weather shifts overnight. Yesterday he was sunshine. Today he's cold wind. The tone changes, the energy changes, the way he replies changes, even the timing of his messages changes. You can feel it not because he says anything, but because everything he doesn't say becomes louder. And this sudden shift does something inside you. It touches your fear, your insecurity, your past heartbreaks, your attachment style, everything. You start searching for answers not because you're weak, but because you're human. Because emotional uncertainty is one of the hardest things for anyone to sit with. And when a man pulls away, the silence isn't just silence. It becomes overthinking, assumptions, replaying every conversation, revisiting every moment, trying to figure out a mistake that might not even exist. But let me tell you something important right here. A man pulling away is not always a story about you. Many times it's a story about him. Most men don't withdraw because they're losing love. They withdraw because they're losing control over their feelings. And control is something men are trained to protect from childhood. Society trains men to be steady, predictable, logical, unemotional, strong. But connection is anything but logical. And when feelings rise, men feel exposed. It makes them feel out of control, vulnerable, almost naked emotionally. And when a man isn't ready to feel that exposed, he steps back. But let's go deeper. Men often live with emotional pressure they never talk about. Pressure to succeed, pressure to provide, pressure to solve problems, pressure to not fail, pressure to appear strong even when they feel weak. And when these pressures combine with emotional closeness, a man begins to fear, what if I disappoint her? What if she expects more than I can give right now? What if I'm not enough? What if I mess this up like everything else? What if I get hurt? What if I hurt her? He won't say any of this. He won't even admit it to himself most of the time. He will mask it with distance. You know why? Because men don't run away from women. They run away from their own emotions, and suddenly his silence becomes the band-aid he uses to stop his heart from beating too fast. But here's the twist. Women interpret this silence as rejection, as if something is wrong with them, something lacking, something unlovable. But every time you go into self-blame, remember this. People withdraw not because others are unworthy, but because they themselves feel unable to handle connection. A man's distance says more about his fear than your value. Let me tell you a truth that most women misunderstand. When a man pulls away, chasing him is the worst thing you can do. Not because men don't like love or attention or affection, they do. But because when you chase, he doesn't feel your connection. He feels pressure, and pressure kills clarity inside him. It makes him feel cornered, overwhelmed, suffocated. Chasing a withdrawing man is like pulling a rubber band. The harder you pull, the faster it snaps back. But when you stop chasing and allow space, something interesting happens. He begins to feel the loss of your presence, not as pressure, but as value, not as fear, but as clarity, not as overwhelm, but as attraction. Men don't fall for women who chase them. Men fall for women they fear losing. But let's dive deeper, because psychology is never one-layered. Sometimes a man pulls away because the relationship is becoming real, not casual, not fun, not just a moment, but real. And real connection terrifies the kind of man who has spent years numbing feelings, avoiding vulnerability, and hiding behind emotional armor. Because real connection demands authenticity. It demands showing your scars. It demands effort. It demands emotional presence. And if he's not ready to offer that, he'll step back instinctively. Not because he doesn't care, but because caring feels dangerous. Every man has a threshold of emotional intimacy he can handle. Once you cross it, he'll either grow or eject. He'll either open up or withdraw. He'll either lean in or pull back. It has nothing to do with your beauty, your worth, your kindness, or your love. It has everything to do with his internal wiring. And here's something women rarely understand. Men don't pull away because they're strong. They pull away because they're scared. Scared of losing freedom, scared of hurting you, scared of becoming an obligation, scared of not being enough, scared of repeating mistakes from past relationships, scared of their own emotional intensity, scared of being truly seen. A man who pulls away is not rejecting you. He is protecting himself from the version of love he thinks he can't handle. But let's go even deeper, because this topic is deeper than fear. Another major reason men pull away is this. They don't know how to communicate emotions. Women express emotions to relieve stress. Men avoid emotions to avoid stress. When a man feels emotional discomfort, his instinct isn't to talk, it's to withdraw. He thinks silence solves problems. He thinks space creates clarity. He thinks distancing will reset him. He thinks being alone will help him figure himself out. And the irony, women interpret silence as danger. Men interpret silence as safety. This is why both end up hurting each other unintentionally. Let me show you a picture of how this actually looks. A woman feels something, she talks. A man feels something, he withdraws. A woman seeks connection to understand. A man seeks distance to understand. A woman overthinks, a man shuts down. A woman wants reassurance, a man wants room to breathe. None of this is wrong. Both are biologically wired differently. It only becomes a problem when you take his behavior personally, because the moment you think, maybe he's losing interest, maybe I'm not enough, maybe I messed something up, you react from fear instead of understanding. And fear always makes you do one of two things: chase him or close yourself. Both destroy the dynamic. What you must do instead is stay centered, stay calm, stay grounded, stay emotionally stable. This is what makes a man feel safe enough to return. Men fall in love with women who hold space, not with women who lose themselves. And while we're here, let me tell you something powerful. A man doesn't come back because he misses your messages. He comes back because he misses your energy, your presence, your calmness, your emotional warmth, your sense of self. You don't win a man back with FO. RT, you win him back with value. And value is always silent. Now let's peel another layer because we're still not done. Sometimes a man pulls away because he is genuinely confused about his own life. Men compartmentalize. They divide life into boxes, work in one box, money in another, family in another, love in another, stress in another. When one box becomes too full, they shut down all the other boxes. Women multitask emotions. Men separate them. So if his work is stressing him out, he might stop texting. If he's worrying about money, he might stop making plans. If he's dealing with family pressure, he might stop expressing affection, not because he doesn't care, but because he cannot operate on two emotional fronts at the same time. A man who is mentally overwhelmed automatically becomes emotionally unavailable. This is not rejection, this is emotional bandwidth. But there's another truth too, and this is the part that stings the most. Sometimes a man pulls away because he doesn't know what he wants, not because he doesn't like you, he does, not because he doesn't feel something, he does, but because commitment forces him to choose, it forces him to define, it forces him to show up consistently. It forces him to take responsibility, and responsibility terrifies an unprepared man. His pullback isn't about you, it's about his fear of choosing the wrong person, or being the wrong person. Sometimes a guy who pulls away is a guy who thinks, what if she deserves better than me? What if she expects things I can't give? What if I'm not ready to step up? Most men who pull away aren't uninterested, they're unprepared. Now let's flip the script, because women also misunderstand their own reaction. When a man pulls away, women often respond with emotional intensity, more calls, longer messages, questions, checking up on him, trying to understand. D, what's wrong? Trying to save the connection, but unknowingly, this pressure pushes him farther. A withdrawing man doesn't need pursuit. He needs space to re-regulate. He needs time to sort his head. He needs distance to think clearly. He needs silence to hear what he really feels. But here's the miracle. If he truly cares, he always comes back, always, because distance doesn't kill real attraction. It exposes it. If he doesn't come back, his chapter was meant to end. If he does, your connection was real. A queen never loses what is hers. She only loses what wasn't. Now understand this. Part 1 isn't just about explaining why he pulls away. It's about understanding yourself in the process, because the real question isn't, why is he pulling away? The real question is, how do you respond when someone pulls away? Do you lose yourself, or do you find yourself? Do you panic, or do you rise? Do you beg for reassurance, or do you hold your dignity? Do you chase uncertainty, or do you choose emotional self-respect? Your reaction decides the entire outcome of the connection. Because a man doesn't stay for beauty. He stays for emotional stability. He stays for depth. He stays for self-value. He stays for the woman who doesn't break when he pulls back. And that woman is unforgettable. There comes a moment somewhere between your confusion and your clarity where you finally understand something powerful, something that changes not just how you see him but how you see yourself. A moment where you realize that someone pulling away does not define your worth, your beauty, your value, or your future. It only defines their readiness. And readiness is not love. Readiness is not connection. Readiness is not emotional depth. Readiness is simply the state of someone's inner world, and sometimes their inner world has nothing to do with you. When a man pulls away, your first instinct is to hold on tighter, but your soul knows that holding tighter never brings anything closer. Love is not something you grip with fear. It's something you protect with dignity. And dignity means understanding that you can love someone deeply without losing yourself entirely. Because here is the truth no one tells you. The right person will never need you to chase them. The right person will never make you compete with silence. The right person will never confuse your heart so deeply that you question your own value. The right person doesn't pull away to create space. They pull you closer to create safety. But not every connection is built with the right person, and that's okay. Because distance is not always punishment. Sometimes distance is protection. It protects you from giving your love to someone who is unprepared. It protects you from investing in someone who isn't aligned with your future. It protects you from building a home in a heart that is still under construction. Sometimes a man's silence is the universe whispering, pause, don't run after something that isn't running toward you. But let's be honest, letting go of fear is one of the hardest emotional battles you'll ever fight. Because when someone withdraws, it awakens every unhealed wound within you. It makes you feel replaceable, invisible, unwanted, forgotten. It makes you feel like you are standing in front of a locked door with memories on one side and uncertainty on the other. Yet life keeps teaching you the same lesson until you understand it. You cannot force someone to choose you. You cannot convince someone to value you. You cannot drag someone into emotional maturity. You cannot rescue someone who keeps running from themselves. But you can choose you. You can value you. You can mature emotionally. You can rescue yourself from the patterns that keep breaking your heart. And when you do that, something deeply powerful happens. You stop fearing distance because you realize distance cannot take away what is truly yours. See, the real transformation doesn't happen when he comes back. It happens when you stop collapsing every time he leaves. When you build a life so full, so rich, so meaningful that someone else's inconsistency no longer shakes your foundation. When your happiness stops depending on someone's attention, when your peace stops depending on someone's presence, when your worth stops depending on someone's validation, that is when you truly grow. That is when you become emotionally magnetic. That is when you become unforgettable. Because the truth is, the strongest version of you is not the woman who holds on. It's the woman who knows when to step back with grace, when to breathe instead of break, when to pause instead of chase, when to love herself enough to let someone figure out their own heart without making it her responsibility. And trust me, when a man feels that kind of confidence, that kind of calmness, that kind of emotional self-respect, he realizes everything he had forgotten in his fear. He realizes that you are a woman he cannot replace, a woman he cannot overlook, a woman he cannot forget, a woman he cannot drift away from without feeling the loss in his bones. Because distance creates one of two outcomes. Either he realizes life feels lighter without you, or he realizes life feels empty without you. If it feels lighter, then he was never meant to stay. And if it feels empty, he will return. Not because you chased him, but because you stayed true to yourself. Never underestimate the power of a woman who stops chasing. A man can ignore your messages, but he cannot ignore your absence. He can silence his phone, but he cannot silence the space you once filled. He can distract his mind, but he cannot distract his heart. Because when you love someone genuinely, your presence becomes part of their emotional memory, and your absence becomes impossible to forget. And here's the deeper truth. Not every retreat is a breakup. Not every silence is rejection. Not every distance is the end of the story. Sometimes it is the beginning of his awakening. Sometimes it is the moment he realizes how much he actually cares. Sometimes it is the space he needs to choose you wholeheartedly, not out of fear, not out of pressure, but out of clarity. But for that clarity to happen, you must remain grounded. You must remain stable. You must remain emotionally centered, not to win him, but to protect yourself. You are not someone's emotional backup plan. You are not someone's temporary comfort. You are not someone's seasonal warmth. You are not someone's half love. You are a full-hearted woman who deserves a full-hearted man. And if someone is unsure about you, let them go find their certainty. You don't have to hold their hand while they decide if you matter. You don't need to shrink yourself to fit their emotional capacity. You don't need to break yourself to keep a connection alive. Love that requires you to lose yourself is not love. It is emotional debt. You deserve a connection where you feel chosen, not after distance, not after confusion, not after silence, not after fear, but right from the beginning. Yet here's the beautiful part. A man who truly cares, who truly values you, who feels something real for you, he will come back stronger, clearer, more certain than before, not because you pulled him, but because you stopped pulling. He comes back when he feels the difference between pressure and peace, between noise and presence, between chaos and emotional stability. Your energy becomes the compass that guides him back, not your effort. And when he returns, you won't have to ask what changed. You'll feel it in his tone, in his actions, in his consistency, in the way he shows up, in the way he prioritizes you, in the way he communicates, in the way he chooses you without hesitation. A man who is ready does not confuse you. He comforts you. He doesn't distance himself. He draws closer. He doesn't make you guess. He makes you certain. He doesn't make you chase. He meets you halfway. But until that man appears, stay loyal to yourself, because at the end of the day, the greatest lesson distance teaches is this. You cannot lose a man who is meant for you, and you cannot keep a man who is meant to leave. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can give openly without begging for it back. You can care fully without collapsing when someone steps away. And when you learn that, truly learn it, you become the kind of woman who doesn't fear distance anymore, because you know the truth. Distance only removes the wrong people, and it only strengthens the right ones. So if he returns, you'll welcome him with clarity, not desperation. And if he doesn't, you'll continue your journey with dignity, not heartbreak, because your worth does not begin when he comes close, and it does not end when he walks away. You are whole, you are enough, you are valuable, you are irreplaceable, and no amount of silence can take that away. This is the strength of a woman who knows her value. This is the power of a heart that refuses to shrink. This is the beauty of loving someone without losing yourself.